We'll go into the next, we're going to have a panel conversation now on re-strategizing HR. And like we said initially when we started, that why should HR change its strategy if they have strategy? If they have strategy, and where they have and they think it is bulletproof, why should they consider changing that particular strategy? To run this particular panel session, we are going to invite three of our speakers. Ladies first. So we shall invite Bumi Kano. She is the head of HR of Air Peace. Welcome, ma. Then we shall invite Leslie George. Meanwhile, recently, I think 2 weeks ago, he ran a program on mentorship. Yes. 2 weeks ago. He is the CEO, lead consultant of Run Right? Horizon. Good. Welcome. And then we're going to have Wale Balogun. He's the HR director of Mary Stokes, right? He flew in, was it last night?
Yes.
Yes, all the way from Abuja for this particular session. The moderator is Victor Diale, but he's unavoidably absent. He is stuck in Chad. Yes. He said no flights. He was supposed to have come in yesterday, but flights have been cancelled. So he said to please beg and crave your indulgence that he is not going to be here. But in his absence, Wale Balogun is going to still lead the program while the team continues as previously said.
The Brown analyst created the panic, but of course, he still brought the calm. I mean, when someone tells you you're going to lose a certain number of jobs, and questions will run riot in your mind, wondering if your job is one of those jobs. And then it was quick to add that you're going to have about a double of such jobs created, and then the calm came back. Okay, no worry, we die here. But in any case, we're going to leave here. And it's a privilege being here today. And with the veterans, we'll do justice to the next few minutes. But I'd like to say that we are not here to teach. We're here to share perspectives and then bring insights to some of the things you know already, some of the things you have as plans for 2020, or bring to the room some conversations that are out there within our organizations that we think we all can brainstorm around. I had a few slides prepared. I don't know if I should quickly run through that. And then each of the persons that I have with us here, both Leslie and Bumi, would also speak briefly. And then we'll have interaction, taking questions from you, trying to respond to it, and then of course having others also join that conversation. All of these we intend to do in about 20-25 minutes. The reason why we're looking at 2020 outlook is because there were things that happened in 2019 and the years before. And the truth is the rough slides in 2019 can't be ignored. I hope there's no Chelsea fan in the room. The intention was not to bring anything back to you. It was just to say we can't ignore that. Have you seen people who will say to you, this has been me, this is me, this is my personality. You just have to know how to deal with me. And my response is always simple. Then you need to get another job. Because this person, this personality can't take this job. Get a job that will put you behind the scene where you're not managing people's experience at work, for example. So you can then keep your personality and how you want to live. But if you're going to manage people's state of mind to drive productivity, to drive value, then you would have to put up the character that can do that. So why is this important? First for me is to ensure alignment between the business and the human resource, to define how people will contribute to the objective of the business and how that will be achieved, to support the business, the clients who are bringing in the money, and of course the shareholders. And lastly, all of those discussions that Dee Brown had, which are like indication of our economic realities, how do we align our business with them? That's why we all draw up strategy. But those strategies would always change at one point or another. And these are the triggers. These are the things that will conventionally cause you to want to change your strategy or modify it or take a look at it again. First is, if there is a change in the corporate strategy, just as the environment, the Nigerian environment being internal to us will keep changing, the global will keep changing, what is happening in the US will influence things and what is happening in Japan, whether they are hosting Olympic rightly or not, whatever will happen there. With Brexit, they are bracing it and they are getting them by December 2020. We'll see them complete that circle as well. So those things will definitely cause change within us. The competition out there, changing your products, your services, your business line, your clients, and even when your customers' buying pattern change, for those who are in product businesses, this will cause you to look back and say, what kind of people do I need to recruit to drive my product? What training or capacity building program do I need to give to them to be able to sell this product? Of course, regulatory and legislated changes, and the song out there still remains constant. We say it's a vocal word. I mean, volatility is the uncertainty is guaranteed, complexity, things are ambiguous by the day. And for all of us in this room, what matters to us per time changes. So before you got married, you probably wanted the AMG Benz, you want, yes, those are the things you wanted. And then you got married, now you have kids, you're thinking about how they will school in Oxford, in Harvard, in MIT, and then your children will start getting married, you're worrying about the kind of grandchildren they will have. So by time, there was a time you didn't need anything about gratuity or pension at work, but as you start aging, healthcare becomes more important to you, gratuity becomes important. So those are things that will cause HR team to look back at their strategy and say, what matters to my people at this time? Of course, the real deal, cash flow. Look, Madam HR, we don't have this money anymore. We can't do this. Forget about this. Just think of how to work with what you have. Do more with the little you have. So the constant cost-cutting pressure is also going to be there. And of course, lastly, the performance pressure will always be there. Now, when do you need to look at these strategies to change them? Of course, firstly, when any of those triggers we talked about happen, you have to consider looking at that strategy again. Once you see resistance from majority of the workforce that you're managing, I mean, at every point in time, have your eyes on those you see as your allies, those who would always support whatever HR comes up with. When you find people in that category start rejecting or kicking, then you should quickly take a step backward. Now, when your workforce demographics start changing, we heard someone say to us that he has people in their 20s, early 20s. What he will be thinking about would not be the same with someone who has dominance of people in their 70s or 50s working for them. So you also need to look at that and then see how that strategy applies to that category. Now, when strategy fails to achieve the desired result, you spoke to your board, when we do this, we'll get this, we'll get that, we'll get that. You know, like a clergy at the pulpit, you just keep saying the things the Spirit was revealing to you at that time. Now, when the realities set and you see that, this thing is not working, don't be too arrogant to take a back step to say, okay, well, we got this wrong. Let's go back to the drawing board. And then lastly, when the business or its owners demand these things also, you see them. I like to do a lot of pictures, but then this is not the typical. But I like this quote here from one of the BBC posts. That same rain wey beats sugar cane, now it beats bitter leaf. Yet that tastes different. When you come up with a change, or with a policy, or with an initiative, or with something, the reception of it will be determined by the experience of each person. What I say to people is, as we relate as human beings, 3 key things determine how we relate, which is EBA for me. The first is my personal experience growing up until that age. The second is my belief, my personal belief, either as dictated by religion, culture, family orientation, etc. And the third is the attitude of that person towards me. And so that's why you see someone who is named a devil that is perceived as an angel by someone else. It's all about the EBA between each of us. So you know that within an organization, employees are at different stage level, their experience is changing and revolving. So when you bring something, do not expect that everyone would accept it the same way. Now, these are common barriers. I'm not going to waste time. I'm sure we're familiar with them already. And then how do we manage change when we have to look at our strategy again? A lot of planning, research, check your baselines. What's the experience like right now? What do you want to drive? How are you going to measure it? And be clear about those objectives. When you're implementing, implement with caution. A lot of times, because as HR people, we've committed to, oh, we'll do this by June. Oh, we'll do this by November. We just want to force those things through. This is just advising that we exercise caution when we're implementing, and then monitor continually. This is not an event, it's a process, and it's something we should do over and over. And then at that review point, is you making a decision. Has this worked? Is it working? Is it not working? Do I need to trash it in the bin and try something else? Now, case studies for me, I've had times where we'll dissipate so much energy to put initiative in place. But at some point, you have to tell yourself the hard truth to say, this isn't working, and you have to try something else. I had plans to share some of this, but because we're racing so fast against time, I'm of course going to be available to talk to anyone who cares to share. But the interesting message for me here is, at different times, organizations will always rethink their HR strategy, look at how they are managing their workforce, look at the experience they are giving their people, and see if there is need to have change. Remember, person wey tire up no dey do wetin, no dey look for back pocket. Lastly, HR as business partners should embrace change without excuses. I've seen HR people storm out of board meetings to say, you guys will not always know what to go. You have asked us to go this way, now you're asking us to go this way. This thing will go work. But the truth is, the organization has its own business realities, and they just expect you to listen to it, process it, understand it, and support them in deploying the resources to achieve what they want the business to achieve. Don't be too egoistic to reverse failing changes or innovation. This is always a problem for HR. We have deployed this. We have spent money. I cannot look like a fool before management. This thing must work. People must accept it by force, by fire. Now, like remember now, if you talk, you die. If you don't talk, you die. They can go talk. You know, me and you no go die in Jesus' name. Without strategy, change is merely a substitution of a process or an event. It is never an evolution. So we must ensure that we have a very agile strategy that we can look and reverse all the time. And lastly, embrace change at all times. But please put the employees first. Remember, the difference between company A that is thriving and company B that is not thriving is just the people. And what the people offer you is simply based on their experience. Thank you very much. So Leslie, and
read the last one for us.
Sorry? Yes, the last one. I see where wear white, no, they eat raw soup, rush. Otherwise, you are gonna go. So take it easy. Thank you very much, guys. Leslie and Bumi will also take their runs, and then we'll take questions and then have quick interactions. Leslie, over to you.
Good morning. My name is Bumi. It's really great to be here. I'll just summarize some key points. First of all, we talk about the strategy. What is the strategy? The HR strategy is basically how the business plans to manage the human capacity to achieve its objectives. So a lot of, as an organization, then it means that you're going to allow people to freely come up with ideas and remove bottlenecks for those ideas to move freely. In Nissan also, they give the line managers complete autonomy in recruitment and in selection. So, I mean, they do all that. So, I mean, there are so many different things that organizations do to drive their HR strategy to achieve the organization's goals. But let's, for the theme for today is re-strategizing the HR strategy. Why would we want to re-strategize the strategy in the first place? My colleague has given various reasons. What I will say is that at every point in time, HR, you are not employed just for the now. You are not employed just for today. So yes, indeed, you are there for your current strategy, but you also need to be thinking about the future of your organization. Where do we plan to be in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, for example, and then what do we need to do to get there? Because the truth of the matter is that there is a lot of evolution that is going on that your business needs to be prepared for the future. And it's not when that happens that you now start to react. You have to start to plan for it. You have to start to anticipate it. A lot of these things that we're hearing now, robotics, bots, quite a number of organizations don't have that in place right now in Nigeria. But then there are organizations that have it. But the fact that your organization does not have it right now doesn't mean that in the next 5 years it will not have it. So can we start having some of these conversations, right now? So that's also preparing for the future and re-strategizing. A lot of HR roles are going to change, not only HR roles, even the current roles that we have currently now, they won't exist again in the future. So we are hearing a lot of new HR terms like culture integration, HR roles like culture integrator, chief happiness officers. I mean, the reason why these names are coming up is because of technology embracement and then things changing around the business. So let's look at some critical strategies to prepare for the future of HR. I have just 7 points here. 1, embrace technology and analytics. So in re-strategizing your HR process or in re-strategizing your HR, one of the areas that we'll be looking at will be technology and analytics. I mean, that's the future already. Why technology? Why analytics? Data is, someone said data is life. I mean,
Oxygen.
Okay, data is oxygen. It's not even, oxygen is life more or less. So really, and HR sits on a bed of data that we need to churn out and not only use for today, but also to predict for the future. Also, with technology, we can change a lot of our processes. David talked about Microsoft and some of the solutions that they have that HR can implement. I know that a lot of millennials in the workplace now don't like the bottleneck of the way that we do a lot of these papers. I mean, they do a lot of things on their phone. So how can we use technology to drive some of our current processes and make them more appealing to the workforce that is going to eventually take over from even the millennials, because like you said, the millennials we're already old. I'm a millennial, we're already old anyway. So how can we use technology to improve our recruitment, for example? How can we use technology to improve our onboarding? How can we use technology to improve the employee's experience whilst with us? So does the employee have to always come to HR, to ask questions? Do they always have to send an email to us and then, okay, there's someone at the HR admin desk that is logging in those inquiries and then answering it? How can we better, do this process? Also, in re-strategizing, there's no how you can re-strategize without understanding the business of your company. And the business of your company will change from now till the future. The customers will change, the demographics will change, the economic will change. We spoke about the economic outlook for 2020 earlier today. HR professionals, there's this thing about us wanting to just be in our office and just talking about HR and our HR parlance, and then we don't really know what's going on with the business. If you don't know what's going on with the business, then you're just going to be archaic, you're going to be like a dinosaur, and you're not going to be relevant to the C-suite. We also need to stay focused on the people. The more we remove some of these transactional activities and then use technology to improve them, we're able to provide better solutions for our people. The main reason HR is there is to provide an organization that people are excited to work for, to have people completely and always motivated and excited about their work. That drives productivity and that increases revenue at the bottom line. For you to do that, you are not going to be there doing forms and all that. You are going to have to be thinking and strategizing about what do I need to do for these people to make them happy. We had 2 examples about flexi work hours, for example, and the gentleman here was able to tell us that introducing flexi hours Monday actually drove productivity on his team. So that's an example, and there are so many others. That helps us to stay focused on the people. We need to be ready for the new workforce. The new workforce is very different. We talked about the gig type of employee. It doesn't have to be just the 9 to 5. You have the ones working off-site. You have the ones that come in twice in a month according to what the business needs. So it's not just structured, it's different. You also have your bots as well. Those guys are also part of your workforce. So the workforce, the demographics of the workforce is changing. Also, we need to stay abreast of compliance issues and legal issues as well. And then we also in HR need to continue to upskill ourselves, learn new skills. I mean, L&D events like this where we learn things, get certified, seek for knowledge, continue to learn. There's so much information out there. It's very easy to learn anything now today. You just have to go to Google and you'll see tons and tons and tons of papers published. Thank you.
Okay, good, still morning, okay, good morning. My name is Leslie, and every once in a while I feel there's a certain kind of redundancy when I have to talk to HR people. The reason is simple, I'm preaching to the choir. I'm serious, because the kind of things I want to say, it's more of, okay, the organization should hear this. Not HR people should hear this. Do you understand? So, amongst ourselves, we say a lot of all those things. But the thing is, with HR practitioners, you have to understand that your role in any organization is advisory. But if your role is advisory, it means that you have to be really, really, really good at what you do. Because you have to advise. Now, when we say it like this, a lot of times, even some HR people don't get it. So, I like to say it like this. There is, in every organization, there is the goal, the objective, whatever the objective is. So let's say the objective is A, okay? And then there's the strategy, or the plan. However you want to use it. We like to use the term strategy because it sounds, it's a plan. So there's what we want to achieve, which is A, and then there's the plan, which is C, okay? Now, what is in the middle of that objective and that plan, what connects the two is people. You see, plans don't work themselves out. Objectives don't achieve themselves. So we have an objective, and then we ask the question, how exactly do we get this thing done? So we come up with a brilliant plan. But no matter how brilliant the plan is, you see that middle, the middle that connects those two, that's where your people come in. Now, regardless of how beautiful a strategy you have, if those people are not on the same level as that strategy, you're not going to get anything done. If you can't raise the level of your people, every year we come up, organizations will come up with brilliant plans. Oh, this is what we're going to do this year. Okay, we're going to do this year. But then you still have the same people on the same level as last year or as the year before. They're on the same level. But yet you're raising the strategy. And some organizations are paying a whole lot of money for consultants to create strategies for them, to draw up strategies. But then the people who are supposed to actually make that strategy a reality are on a lower level than the strategy they're supposed to achieve. That's where HR comes in. That's where we start to ask the question, what exactly are you doing? So my job is Well, let me say it like this. My job is to cause trouble. Because every single time I go to an organization and they tell me their plans, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is nice. This is beautiful. This is amazing. And then I start to pick holes in the plans. And it starts to make a lot of them feel very bad because they spent a lot of time developing this thing. But that's not the point. The point is you've spent a lot of time, a lot of resources to develop something that you probably will never be able to achieve. Do you understand? So, this is what I think. I think that the connector between what we want to achieve and how we want to achieve it needs to be at par. So we have that glorious idea. That's cool. Make your people as glorious as the idea that you have. You need to be able to understand that. Okay, how many of you remember when primary school, secondary school, factors of production? Okay, so we have land, labor, capital, and capital. And then take that know-how to use the learning or the skill to create productivity. You're going to start to create strategies that as you go from January, you move to February, then you move to March, then you move to April, and then when you get somewhere in April, you're thinking, okay, what was that plan again? Because you're pushing it, but it's not moving. And if it's not moving, you just move on and leave it. And at some point you realize, okay, we haven't done this, let's go back to it, let's look at it again. The problem usually is execution. Execution is 100% follow through. Every once in a while you see an organization that will start out strong and then they start to weaken as they go along. Because they realize that there's some things there that are either irrelevant to what is going on or they just can't pull it off. They don't have the resources, they don't have the manpower, they don't have anything to pull it off, so they just leave it. And then maybe something else comes up and they follow that thing. You know, it's like my son, he's 10 years old. If we're talking about something and the thing that we're talking about starts to bore him, he just switches to something else. In the middle of the conversation, he just changes. And you're like, I was saying, well, he's gone. He's not listening to you. So when we start to talk about the new people and talk about the young people and all that, we tend to feel that, oh, if we do what they're comfortable with, they will be more productive. But that's not true. It's not because they're more comfortable with what they do right now. Doesn't tell you that, oh, okay, if we follow through with what they're doing right now, there'll be higher productivity. There are times when we need to understand that, look, there's some things that will create conformity. And if you have people who are 30, 40, 50-year-olds in the workforce, you can't have those 30, 40, 50-year-olds conform to what the 22, 23, 24-year-olds are comfortable with, simply because you're thinking that this is the future. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You need to be able to create a balance, and striking a balance is what your strategy needs to work. If you can't strike that balance, and you're actually creating that uneven tilt towards the younger people, because you're going to lose a lot. You're going to lose a lot. The week before, I spent like 4 hours having to talk about the whole millennial and Gen Z's trouble and all that, and we had a lot of, I want to say this with a grain of salt, a lot of people, young people who have a lot of entitlement. Absolutely. They feel that the organization should flow in their direction. Absolutely. And we're thinking, okay, then what of the other people in the organization? I'm trying to figure that out. What do they do while we're doing this because of you? Do you understand? So, HR strategy is a subset of the organization, the corporate strategy. The corporate strategy is broken down into, okay, there's corporate strategy, then it comes down to the business units, then it comes down to, do you understand? It breaks down. HR strategy is a component of all that. So HR is looking at the whole thing and saying, okay, this is the big picture. What do? We break it down to business units. What are they supposed to achieve? How do they achieve it? Who are the people supposed to achieve it? Are they up to par?
Can they actually do this? Which is why we keep talking about training and development and all that. Our problem is we're trying to train. We say, okay, we have new tech, let's train these people. But that's the organization training the people. The individuals who are in that middle of objective and strategy, what exactly are they doing so that they can raise their own level? We think that it's the organization that has to do all the development and all the learning and all the knowledge and all the, no. That's where the problem is. So HR has to create that space for people to be able to build themselves. We have to create that space for people to be able to say, okay, yesterday I was on level 2, I want to be on level 3. How do I do that? What's the organization doing for me so that I can actually do that? There's some things you would never see unless you start. So as it starts, you see some things and you're like, oh, okay, we need to do this. Okay, new plan. Bumi, please arrange for these people to go and learn how to do X, Y, Z. Abi? Because we found out something new. But before we find out that new thing, we need to have every person ready. That's HR. That's your job. That's your job. Organizations keep thinking that HR doesn't have any place in the C-suite. You need to prove yourself. We're too operational. We need to be strategic. We need to start to think business. I'm sitting there with some people. The guy said, "Are you you're a consultant?" I said, "What do you consult in?" I said, "HR, business management." He said, "Business management." I said, "Yes, all the things you talk about, strategy, blah blah blah. Basically, that's what I do." He said, "Yeah, and you're HR? That's surprising. HR people, you don't have any business with things like that." That's basically how they think. Because you hear the story, it's difficult for you to have a person who is in HR who actually goes through the ranks in HR and became CEO. Because they don't think that HR with strategy. But when you sit down and you're in a meeting and they're talking a lot of all these things, and you're talking from that strategic point of view, you see, they start to listen. But we don't. We're like, okay, you guys talk strategy, when you finish, let me talk people. Nah, it doesn't make sense. So we need to start to think and rethink how we think in strategy. HR strategy is a subset of the larger strategy. If we don't understand how the larger strategy works, I don't understand how we're going to make our own strategy work. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bumi and Leslie. I mean, catchy for me. We'll take questions. And there is also something which a lot of us in this part of the world do not like to put into consideration, and that is accountability. For every authority or responsibility comes accountability. But we want that authority, but we don't want the accountability. Now, allow me to just take this decision. But when I take that decision, I make that call and it fails, are you willing to take on the brunt of that failure and take it as a learning? Or you want to push that bug to your manager or someone else? Don't mind all the old people. You know, they say all these young people, all these Gen Z, all these Gen Z, all these Gen Z. I mean, as Gen Zs, as they try to call us, let me come and hide. Don't I look it? Great, so, and you know these things happen in the mind, right? I see us as eggs, right? Eggs, you know, the normal egg you eat, very fragile. And my acronym for egg would be excitement, generating, and growth sets. Excitement, generating, and growth sets. If you don't have them in your organization, you don't have life. You're disconnected from the reality of this age. So we need everyone to come to the table, like you said, Leslie, and that's just where I'm coming to say that don't focus on the young, technology-driven people and leave the wisdom of the old. They are like the generals. They know the history, they know the journey. They can see the pitfalls and they can talk. Please just indicate by show of hand, or if you're the type that is microphone shy, you could just scribble it and give it someone to pass to us in front. Any question from all of the points of discussion that we have had? 2, 3, anyone? Okay, I understand there's a prize for the first person to ask the question. Okay, Joe, you're excluded. I understand there's a package for, oh now, let's see the hands, There's something out there, there's a box. The person with the, second, okay, great, we have 2 in the room.
Valentine package.
Well, don't spill. We have 2 already. Any other, okay, so we'll start with you.
Good morning. My name is Tosin, and I would like to ask more particularly about the Gen Z talents now. Okay, so now we're looking at, I think Leslie also, okay, most of the discussions this morning focusing on letting them, because they have this, or let me say we have this exposure to the future of work kind of, and then taking advantage of that, leveraging on that, to inculcate in the organization and the structure and everything. Okay, so I'm looking at that model within the HR that actually permits them to really explore work. Now, don't let's forget that our exploration most time has been outside work. Now, you're bringing me on board to work, and I can only relate that exploration to, let me use the language, your work. So take for example, as Leslie now, you employ me to your organization. Okay, I've not been in your line of work, quote unquote, or your culture. So basically, I'm trying to infuse my exposure with your work. Now, considering the fact that, okay, I'm new here now, I'm trying to infuse those things. So does the HR actually, because do they really give that room for that exploration?
Okay, great.
I don't know if you understand.
Yeah, I think there's a place to accommodate that exploration, that creativity, that innovative mind. I've had someone say to me, look, I can give you all that you want, but I can't take my eyes off my phone for a long time. Just allow me. One of us, Gen Z, yeah? She was very serious about it. And guess what? Allow her to do that work the way she knows how to do it, and you will get your result. In their own time, when you come to work, you don't even pick calls. When people call you, say, call me by 5, I'll leave work. But these people want to. You know what I mean? And once they do that for 5 minutes, story, Insta live, Insta this, they come back to your work. They just reject their minds and they get to work.
I tend to apologize a lot for the kind of things I like to say, because majorly a lot of things I say they're not popular. That doesn't mean they're not true. Take last year I had 2 young guys who worked with me straight out of university. So they worked with me for like 4 months last year. And there was this lady, I'm talking to her, and she's on Insta. Yeah. And I'm talking to her, and she's looking up from the phone and talking to me, and she's doing that. And you see, it's difficult for you to be able to excuse certain things. So, I said, when you come into the office, put your phone on the table, put it in front of you. It's on and all, just put it in front of you. Don't touch it. If you can do that for 30 minutes to an hour, okay? I'll give you 2 hours to do whatever it is you like with your phone. But if you can actually leave it in front of you on your table, I'm not taking your phone, it's on, it's not off. You can hear notifications, but it's on your table. And you don't touch it for an hour. I'll give you 2 hours every day, do whatever it is you like on the phone. And I'm proud to announce that she couldn't do it. Because,
You see, we tend to feel that there's something called normalization of deviance. Let me explain what normalization of deviance. You see, something is wrong, but we make it seem like it's okay. That's what the problem is. So I'm doing a training, and then this girl that's sitting in front of me, and she doesn't get off the phone. And I'm thinking, it's not possible. You see all that multitasking thing you hear? It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. So here she is, training. Company has paid a whole lot of money for you to come here. Okay, so she's there, wasting the money and the time. So at some point I asked her, I said, could you put your phone on the table? So she puts the phone on the table. And she couldn't get her, she kept doing this. Do you understand? It's a problem, and we need to understand it's a problem. We shouldn't enable it. Now, the thing with my 15-year-old is, he's on the phone all day. But every once in a while, he'll walk past me and he'll say, Daddy, do you know that? And he's going to tell me something that I don't have an idea about. Do you understand? He's an information hog. He's always, you know, and we sit down once in a while, we have conversations, and he's talking, and, you know, he's asking questions that are deep questions that make me think before I can answer. I leave him on the phone.
Yes.
Meanwhile, my nephew and my niece come to my house and spend weekends, and whenever they open their mouths to say anything, it is always something shallow and irrelevant. And I'm thinking, is this something that I should encourage? Should I encourage this? So if these people are working for me, how do I actually do this? You have to understand how organizations work. Organizations don't work for you. They work for themselves. Organizations hire you to help them achieve what they want. It's not what you want. So if you can't fit, you go somewhere you fit. That's basically the truth. All of it is bottom line. If you're not adding to that bottom line, and then besides bottom line, there's values. Whoever owns the company has his own values. And he's looking at it and he's thinking that these values don't align with mine. Do you understand? So it's not because the world is looking at the Gen Zs and saying that, oh, this is the future of work. They are not the future of work. They are not the future of work. If they have something to offer, they will put it on the table. So if you want something done, look for somebody who knows how to do it. It's as simple as that. Find somebody who knows. So if I'm hiring a Gen Z, I'm hiring a Gen Z who has sense. No, it's true.
Thank you so much, Leslie. So when Leslie started, my heart started skipping. Okay. And then I was trying to gauge the atmosphere in the room. I was hearing the applause for Leslie from one angle. And then when I spoke about Gen Z earlier, I heard another applause from one angle. I'm like, okay, so there is salad in the room, really. But key punchlines for me, normalization of deviance. As much as we're talking about tolerance and support to allow people work in a manner that will drive their productivity, we are not asking for normalization of deviance. I heard word from my big sister over there, digitalized illiterates. And I agree with her 100%. That is what a lot of people have become. But I would rather we just draw that balance in that analogy of salad. That we need a blend of everything without in any way enthroning the wrong value or value system.
I completely agree with you. And I agree with you on the part of balance, when you spoke about balance right there. The fact of the matter is that we can't do away with the Gen Zs. And it's not all the Gen Zs that have this problem. And that's the truth. So what does the organization, what is the culture, the value, and the policies of the organization? If the Gen Z is not following through with it, then that means the person can't stay there. But also, HR has to, because we also need to honestly be futuristic, and that's the fact. We can't stay in our little cocoon and our little bubble and pretend as if these people are not there. Remember, 20, 30 years from now, we would have taken a back seat. So what happens? We have all these Gen Zs all over the place. I will have retired in the next 40 years. So I'm not always going to be there. So the question is, how do we solve the problems some of these problems that they have? Is it particular to all the Gen Zs all over the world? Is it particular to the Gen Zs here? Is there an educational problem? What's giving them this entitlement mentality? And then we start to drive how we change them and change their mindset. You have the odd, or the ones like he said, like Leslie said, you have those very brilliant ones, intensely brilliant, and whether they're on their phone for 24 hours, you don't even care because they still deliver results. So you don't care, maybe they work in the middle of the night, but they drive the results and they bring the results, so you look away.
One more question. There was a lady here before him, so maybe two. Can we have the microphone passed to her? I could take a walk to you.
Hello everyone, my name is Amaka, HR analyst in KPMG Professional Services. So my question is similar to what the young man over there asked recently, but is more tailored in tune with what Mr. Leslie said. You said in order to successfully execute a strategy for the year, you'd have to prepare the people, basically. So I want to ask, where do you really find the balance in preparing the two generations, so to say? And I say two generations, like the older and the younger, not in age, but in mindset. I feel like the reason why more light is shed on the Gen Z is their acceptance to change and not really feeling threatened by the change. Like you come into a room of HR professionals and you're like, robots are going to take your job. The first thing they think is, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job in 10 years. But they don't really think, what can I do to be a part of that? It doesn't excite them. But you could tell that to a Gen Z and the person will be like, okay, I feel like the work is going to get more exciting for me in soon. So how do you really prepare the salad, the people? How do you mix the salad, really, to get your people in? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Okay, again, the interpreter will try to help. First, I think it would be erroneous to assume that the Gen Zs are quick to accept change.
But I said that is what is perceived of them.
Oh, great. They are not, but I agree with you that they are always excited about emerging on new trends. And that makes it easy for them to accept what to an older person might be a threat would be like an excitement to them, right? Like a boot for their ginger. Let me speak the word, using the words we understand. So let's hear, Les is the one making the salad, so we'll hear it.
All right. I was going to say something about the acceptance of change and all that. See, I think we should simplify, and this is why we should simplify. If I have this whole room, and we all are going to do something, okay, and everybody has his own bit of that whole thing that he or she is going to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, okay, what are you supposed to do? ABCD. What is required to do ABCD? Do you have what is required to do ABCD? How long have you done ABCD? Do you have experience so that when you have issues, you know exactly what to do? You don't, okay, if you don't have experience, then we have to actually school you. Someone who has experience will have to actually supervise or whatever it is, or you understudy or whatever it is. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, I can't actually say because there's a change, there's an acceptance or acceptability for change or whatever it is, and then I leave critical things in your hands. I have to make sure that if we have a plan, I like to use the military analogy a lot, so let me use another one. Every single morning, soldiers are drilled, they're trained. Whether there's a war, there isn't. You know why? So that when there's a war, they're ready. We don't start to train them when we hear that, oh, okay, there's not a bombing canoe. Ah, okay, let's go and find soldiers. Do you understand? That's basically the reason. So what we need to do is, we need to make sure that every single person who has a bit of that strategy understands what is required, okay? Knows what they need to know to do what is required. Look at Google. When Google started, you had Sergey and the other guy, and they got Schmidt, because Schmidt is experienced. They didn't know anything except the tech. They knew nothing. No.
They just here to show you the genesis. That we can see the microphone and we'll wait to see it.
They knew nothing, and they understood the place of experience. Do you understand? So when we talk about this kind of things, look, it's not, I'm not by any means saying that, oh, this Gen Z people, they are useless. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we need to strike a balance. And that's what I'm saying. And that's basically what we need to do. A lot of times we think that strategy is some complicated thing. No, it's not. It's simply, this is the plan, this is your part in the plan. Can you do it? No, you can't do it. Okay, Bumi, please show me how it's done. Done. It's that simple. But at the same time, it's that complicated. All right.
For us, my closing remark will be, it is never going to be an event. It's a process. It's like a machine that we need to keep cranking until we get the desired result. Thank you for tolerating us.
Let's recognize you. Thank you before you finish. Thank you very much. Come.